Remember when you were a kid, when you were young, 0 to 10 years old, nothing bothered you. Nothing was on your mind that could make you unhappy. You know, you played the way that you wanted to play, you learned the way that you wanted to learn, you failed the way that you wanted to fail. And obviously, you still had your bad days, you would cry, you would feel left out, but overall, when you were a kid, before you entered that consciousness of thinking and ruminating in your own thoughts, you were an overall happier individual. And it wasn't until, after 10 years old, from 10 to 20 years old, is when you start developing, thoughts, perspectives, judgments, and worldviews, which start shaping you and creating, who you are today. And then around 20 years old is when you're kind of developed into a more conscious, mature kind of adult. And what this video I want to explain, and kind of from what I've learned about happiness and basically what I'm implementing into my own life, is reconnecting with that younger self. Trying to unlearn everything that I've learned and unlearn everything that I've become. Not forgetting or not, stripping away who I am, but almost unlearning all the fears, all the judgments, all the things that society has taught us in order for us to connect, or at least me, to connect with my younger self, connect with my inner child, in order to access that state of being of almost pure joy. Because we grow up, right? We grow up and life starts throwing us things. Life starts throwing us, people. We're told when we're younger or when we're growing up, people will judge you. And then you go through life and experience different things where you might go to school and you might get made fun of for wearing or saying or acting in a certain way. And then subconsciously, as you're growing up, you're learning and you're programming yourself, okay, these are the categories, and you're putting yourself into boxes of things that I'm not going to be doing because, people see and treat me a specific way after they see me act or do something this way. And then in another box and then in a category, oh, okay, these are what's acceptable. These are the things that make people laugh. These are the things that society accepts. These are the things I could say, wear, be. And as we grow older, as we, get past our 20s, we almost are formed into an individual that society has created. Through the teachers, through our parents, through the political systems, through religions, through different ideologies, we're basically almost created into a specific, unique individual. And now, living in social media, not to mention, we're comparing ourselves with 8 billion other people on this planet. So now just think about it. In your own life, what kind of a person you are becoming. You are becoming somebody that has to be almost accepted by 8 billion people. You are becoming somebody that puts on a mask and displays this form of character in order to please 8 billion people. Obviously, I'm speaking in hypothetical terms. All 8 billion people aren't listening or watching or saying something to you, right? But in the communities, in the cultures, in the workplaces, in the schools that we attend, in the universities that we go to, with the people that we speak to, we're all putting on this ideology and face in order to be accepted to some degree. And this is why I think we struggle with such a happiness crisis, because people are playing a character. And in order for you to not play a character, in order for you to live and be at your truest, most happiest self, I think the answer lies in learning and reconnecting with how you used to live as a child. And that's from 0 to 10 years old. But it's so difficult. And so much people almost can't or spend their whole life doing it. And some people never are able to do it because from 0 to 10 years old, majority of our life was spent unconsciously. Meaning, you can't recall what you've done, very precisely in those time frames, who you were, what you like to play with. You might see it from videos or pictures or things that your parents told you, but it's not like you can recollect those feelings in those moments, right? Like now you can, I don't know how old you are, but let's say, for example, you're 30 years old. I'm sure when you were, riding a bike when you were 25, you could recollect to how that feeling felt to you and remember, oh yeah, I really do like riding a bike. Or, oh, maybe I don't like riding a bike. But my point being is if people just spent, and this is what I'm trying to do for 2026, like one of my New Year's resolutions, trying new, more different things and seeing how it makes them feel, it brings them closer to their authentic, childlike self. So this year, I took on a New Year's resolution to start dancing more. Start, not being scared of what people think if I'm a shit dancer or anything like that. Just because I know every time I dance, it brings me happiness, it brings me joy, and I just feel alive. I know I'm garbage, and I don't care. But I know it's what my inner child feels like he's being expressed to the most happiest part of himself. Because I think that when we do things and we start, experimenting and playing with whatever it may be, different hobbies, different ride bike, go canoeing, hiking, try all these different things out, there's something in us that will either like it or not like it. And the more things that we try and the more things that we're able to, figure out what we don't like and not like, we're just slowly uncovering who we are as an individual, reconnecting to our younger self, but then also finding that authentic version of ourselves, which allows us to be a little bit more happier. Because think of it, whether maybe, let's say, for example, you're raised in, doesn't matter, left or right-sided political party family. At the end of the day, does it really matter? No. We're all just humans anyway, experiencing this life for the first time. You're no different than I am. You've just been brought up with different views that make you have a different perspective to different things because you were told by specific people and you were brought up in an area and a culture and a community to agree and think the same way that other people do, right? But then living in that kind of way of thinking brings us to a point in our life where we're almost very unhappy. And I think it's because we're being told what is right and what is wrong rather than going out for ourselves and figuring out, okay, what is it that I like? What is it that I stand for? But people are too scared nowadays to try different things, to look like a fool, for example, on the camera when they, might pick up a hobby of making a YouTube video or trying to learn to skateboard. And we've been brought up and accustomed to society to almost put us into a box, like I said, and tell us that, okay, this is how life is, and this is who you're going to be, and this is what you're going to believe, and this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. It's the same thing when it comes to your parents. Yes, your parents want what's best for you. Yes, your parents want what's, in their opinion, best for you. But at the end of the day, your parents are not you. You might share some, similar DNAs and genetics with them, but your mind operates at a completely different level than theirs do. And what might bring them happiness and what might bring them joy when they were like a little kid, for example, is 100% not going to bring you the same thing. So that's why I very much disagree with when people almost turn into their parents. They basically take on their parents' identity and then almost become their parents. Like, try to think back to, how do you act? How do you speak? How do you... Okay, walking is actually pretty funny. Like, me and my brother walk the same way. And I think we walk exactly the same way like my dad does. But that's besides the point. That might just be some pattern recognition thing. But just like interests and stuff like that, and just like habits and the way that you speak and the way that, like, for example, anger management control, egotistical views, things that piss you off, things that don't piss you off. Right? If you don't do the work on trying to reconnect with your own authentic self, you're just going to become a copy of the people that told you how to live life, of told you what is right and wrong, and most of the time those people are the most unhappiest people ever. Like, I always like to tell the story of how when I first came out of high school, my parents would always tell me, okay, my entire family actually, not just my parents, go to dental school, go to dental school, go to dental school, go to dental school. And, I might have listened to them and saved 5 years of time and just done it. But in these past 5 years, I've grown and I've learned and I've developed into like who I am right now because I tried different things. I spoke with different people. I tried different jobs, and I slowly learned a little bit about myself, what I like, what I don't like, who I am, what interests me, what doesn't interest me, what kind of conversations I like having with people, what kind of people I like to hang around, what kind of people I don't like to hang around. And I'm not saying like that couldn't have happened if I just listened to them and just done what they've told me to do, but it is always more worth it for you to take your own path of self-discovery in a sense, because at the end of the day, this life in one moment can vanish. And if you're living your life for somebody else, what are you doing? Really, just think about it and ask yourself, what is it that you like to do? What is it that you've always dreamt of doing? And then ask yourself, why didn't you do it, or why aren't you doing it? Because somebody will, have a judgment on you? Think about it for a second, right? Like, I'm on the bus going around the city, just, in my spot, dancing and like kind of like listening to some music, just like having a very good time in my own like mind. And then these people are like looking and sitting around me, like kind of judging me, thinking like, oh, what's wrong with this kid? Like, why is he so happy, kind of thing? And like looking and judging, and it's just like, the moment you step outside of your own head, the moment that, at least for me, when all the fucks that I gave about what people thought about me were thrown out the window, that's when life started getting so real. that's when life started getting so happy. Because now you aren't living to somebody else's standard. Now you aren't living to please your parents. Now you aren't living to, please your school teacher. Now you aren't living under fear of, whatever religious institute that you've been brought up in. You are just a human being that's alive and doing things that make you happy. But so much of us growing up as a society, we've been like almost brainwashed to fear what people will think of us, which stops us from doing so much of what we actually want to do and who we truly are inside. Right? Think about it. For example, you tell your parents when you're younger, "Dad, I want to be a firefighter." Your dad says, "Son, don't be a firefighter. Go to medical school. You're going to be it's going to pay the bills. Firefighting is not the way to go." For some reason that might be the, what's wrong with his father kind of thing, but whatever. Father knows best. So you listen to your father, and, in the back of your mind, you're always thinking like, I wonder what life would be like. Like, why do I have this thought? Why do I have this curiosity? Why do I have this idea of even wanting to become a firefighter? You go to medical school for, 10, 15, 20 years. And then all of a sudden you come out of medical school, you start working as a doctor or some sort of specialist, but you still have this idea. And then all of a sudden you get into life and you start living on autopilot. Wake up, work, come back, go to sleep, wake up, work. And then you start despising the work that you do. You start despising it. And then you built this resentment and anger towards your father because he's the one that told you to do this. And then you're just always thinking, as you're, working as a doctor, for example, I wonder what life would be like if I was a firefighter. Why didn't I try it? Why didn't I try it when I was younger? Why was I so scared of, telling my parents or my dad, no, I want to try firefighting? It's because if it didn't work out and if you decided to change your mind midway, you're scared subconsciously that your parents would be like, you know what, I told you so. Or whatever it may be, some people's situations are different. So the main takeaway that I want you guys to take away from this video and what's allowed me and what I'm practicing in 2026 to really live at that level of almost pure joy and happiness and every waking moment I have is curiosity and connecting with your child, your inner child. People might say it's stupid or immature and whatnot, but those are the same people that are saying that are miserable, depressed, hate the job that they're working at, and have this pessimistic outlook to life. Obviously, you gotta have some social cues and when it's time to be serious, when you're having a legit conversation or some sort of professionalism is around you. You can't be acting like a stupid little child. But when you want to tap into that child and have fun or have those thoughts and just live according to your rules and guidelines, do it, have fun, dance in the street nobody's watching, sing in the shower, all these crazy things that you did when you were a child. Build that Lego set, whatever it may be, what you did as a child. Connect with that and tap into what you're curious. What are you curious about? Are you curious about hiking? Are you curious about skating? Why? Try it out. And if it won't open one door, it might open another door. And then eventually, as you keep tapping into your curiosity, leaning in towards your childlike self, number one, I can almost promise you'll be 1,000 times happier. But B, you're going to have a more fulfilling life that's going to be with more opportunities, adventure, and optimism towards life. So I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to drag it on too long. I'm almost like going on like a yap session now. But if you guys enjoyed the video and it maybe, brought some, opened a different perspective towards you, make sure you like it. Share it with somebody else that might find it interesting. And I'm going to leave you like I always do. Create more than you consume, baby. Serve others. Love everyone. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.